prints not sticking to the build plate, inconsistent extrusion, and resin all over the damn place. All this and more, Print Fix Friday, episode 46. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and YouTube's longest running weekly print fail fix series. Remember, we need your help for these fails. We're running out of fails and we would love to not only showcase your print fails and help you fix them, but hey, also give you guys a shout out because we love working with this awesome community. And to do this, you can tag us on all the social medias. Links will be somewhere around me, and you can use the hashtag PrintFix. That way we can easily find it. We're gonna start off today with a bed adhesion problem where after a couple of layers, prints are just sliding right off the print bed, which is nice when the print is over, but not when you're in the middle of the print. After that, we move into inconsistent extrusion that, from first glance, you might think is actually a bed that is not level. After that, we move into another case of it is not wet filament. Stop thinking it's wet filament. It's actually a retraction problem. After that, we go into a expensive brick, a very expensive brick. F's in the chat for that. One of two times we're gonna see F's in the chat today. Following that, we have my buddy Paul from Polymate, who has a cracked extruder idler. It's a common problem. Learn how to fix it. Then we move into a fail of my own, and it involves these two dragons. If you don't know what I'm talking about, stay tuned for it. And finally, we end off with my buddy Uncle Jessy, who has made a bit of a mess. But you know what isn't a mess? Our sponsor, 3D Musketeers, now with over 40 3D printers, because I have a problem. If you are tired of dealing with calibrating your printers, having issues with extrusion, bed leveling, resin getting all over the place, you can reach out to the pros at 3D Musketeers, where we, from time to time, do have those problems, but you, the client, do not hear about them. We have over 40 3D printers to help you make awesome every single day. And whether you are just an average individual looking to invent something, by the way, we have an entire class structure coming soon. I am very, very excited to share that with you guys soon. TM. Or you are an insurance company looking to produce demonstrative evidence to help your court cases, or you're an awesome fan that just wants to make cool stuff with us, like one fan is making right behind me. We here can help you make all of that possible. But we understand that your printers might be running just fine and you still want to be able to support the channel. A couple of bucks into that creator fund goes a long way. The first of the month is coming up, and that is the best time to support your favorite content creators out there, because Patreon bills at the first of every month. I have no idea when YouTube does it for their channel memberships, but hey, we appreciate your support no matter what. And of course, if money is a bit of a challenge, we understand the economy's not going great. I'm not looking at my retirement anytime soon. A like, share, and subscribe goes a long way to helping our videos reach a vast audience out there. But enough of the call to actions. I know you guys skipped through them, and then you're gonna miss a little bit about the Making Awesome Academy. It's a fun one. So let's just get back into those fails. I'm having problems with stuff sticking to the bed. It starts decent enough, but after a few minutes, the first layer moves and blob. We don't have any print settings, unfortunately, so that's a bit of a bummer. But looking at this, let's enhance. I don't think we're close enough. We've got some gaps here, especially as we get closer in, and it makes sense to me that we're not getting enough stick to the bed itself. We can also see some layers pulling away, and that is just perimeters pulling away from themselves, which again leads to the fact that you're a little bit too far away. Look at re-leveling your build plate, and as much as people like the paper method, I am much more of a fan of the feeler gauge approach. Instead of a piece of paper, you get feeler gauges. You can get them at basically any auto parts store. They're used for gapping spark plugs, but don't get a spark plug gapping tool. They're way harder to deal with. Get feeler gauges, or you can get Uncle Chep's bed leveling kit from Amazon. We'll link to it down below if you want to check it out. They're great for actually leveling print plates, and while I don't have any particular experience with it, the basic premise works, and quite a few other individuals have tried it out and absolutely love it. And it's a couple of bucks. It goes to a good creator in this industry, so you definitely can't complain there. Auto bed leveling would help with this quite a bit. But looking at adjusting your Z offset as you're printing that brim to make sure that it sticks down good, I think is really one of those key factors. There is nothing wrong with adjusting the wheels on your printer as it's printing. However, you must be very careful in that you don't adjust it too much and cause it to get messed up in other areas, as well as not to burn yourself, not to run into the printer. There are a lot of factors to deal with there. So if you do decide to level on the fly, be careful and start slow. Make sure to clean that bed as well. If you haven't, get it cleaned off with hot water and dish soap. We want to get all the oils from your hands off of that print plate. What is causing this? Now, you might think, Grant, you're literally talking about the same thing 3 times. No, actually, take a look at this, okay? We're dealing with under extrusion, and it initially instantly pings the, oh, level your bed, because literally, that's what this person said. But it's actually under extruding. And yeah, that's why you've got some lines that actually look okay, and then others that just aren't there, right? They've tried replacing the PTFE tube, which is always a good thing to do. This is a Creality style printer. It's got the carborundum glass plate on it. And if you are dealing with an older printer that is giving you problems, look at replacing that PTFE tubing. It's good to do it, and it's pretty cheap. I always recommend going with Capricorn tubing. Links, of course, in that description down below. I like this option here to raise the nozzle from the bed and try a manual extrusion of 100 millimeters. Watch it coming from the nozzle and monitor the extrusion. I know what they're trying to do here. What they're looking for when you want to raise the bed and then extrude 100 millimeters is how straight that filament is coming out. If it comes out in a big squiggly line and all that, then you'll likely have a partial clog. You can also check by measuring that 100 millimeters on your filament before it goes into your either extruder, Bowden tube, whatever, and make sure that it is actually extruding the amount that you're telling it to. If it's not, and it is squiggly lines coming out rather than a nice, solid, smooth line, you likely have a partial nozzle clog, and it might be good to look at doing a cold pull. If you haven't replaced your Bowden tube, go ahead and pull it out and take a look at it. It might be burned, might be worn, and again, Bowden tube is pretty damn cheap, and it's always good to have spares laying around. But if it is coming out, it's coming out straight, but you're still not getting the full 100 millimeters, look at your drive gear. Your drive gear could be ground up with some crap on it. Maybe there was a print where you had a bit of a fail and some debris built up on the gears of your extruder. So as it's turning, it slips, then catches again, and it could be what we're seeing here. Most likely, I'm gonna go with a partial nozzle clog on this one. It's not all that common. If you are using crappy filament, it can happen. And black filament is generally the biggest offender of this because companies can hide trash inside of black filament that you as the user may not ever see. Whether that's dust, hair, whatever. If their extrusion lines aren't great, you're gonna see it in your prints. And that's why we generally recommend to try to shop locally when you can. Those of you that have micro centers near you, 1, fuck you. 2, their Inland brand is a white label of eSun, as far as I'm aware. It is decent filament, and for the price, you can just go pick it up in a store. It's amazing. For those of you that have to order it in, there are lots of options out there. Of course, Polymaker makes Polyterra, which I'm actually printing directly behind me. And I do really like the filament, although it is denser than you expect. I learned this the hard way after having quite a few prints fail on me because I forgot to change the filament out. We also highly recommend Printed Solid and their Jessy filament line. Of course, recently, they were bought by Prusa Research. We'll card to that video so you guys can take a look. It's a match made in heaven as far as I'm concerned. And we've been basically sole sourcing our filament from Dave and his company for the better part of a year now. And it's been going really, really well. Of course, with Polymaker doing some really awesome sales, not just for Prime Day, but they just did a 50% off sale for Chris Perillo's birthday. I've been deciding to pick it up, and I have been falling in love with Polyterra all over again. Of course, there are brands out there like Atomic, IC3D, Greengate, Push Plastic, among many others that are made right locally here in the United States that you're able to buy from, and they ship directly to you. Some of which, like IC3D and Greengate, also offer recycled filament lines, so that if you are wanting to be a little bit more environmentally conscious, you can do so. And don't forget, for the Polyterra, every spool you buy, they plant a tree. I can't hate that. And honestly, Jessy filament, it's just really affordable and it works. And I think they have the best cardboard spool designs on the market, period. But for something like this, start with that nozzle, exactly what that individual said. Extrude 100 millimeters, take a look to see how that extrusion comes out, measure it before, measure it after. If it didn't go through 100 millimeters, you've got yourself a problem, and start diagnosing from there. And if it did, well, maybe we got to look at tightening up some V-wheels, but let's look at the extrusion first. That is likely our culprit here, and we'll go from there. My print has these small holes and is very weak. I suspect that the filament is wet because I stored it near an open window. How would I fix this? One, don't store filament near an open window. Like, I don't even care, moisture or otherwise. Debris, dust, and dirt is way more likely. It's not wet filament, and stop it. It's not wet filament. Seriously, I've been over this so many damn times. It's not wet filament. Seriously, wet filament looks like Rice Krispies in your print, and it will sound like that too. I've even showed it off multiple times in videos what wet filament sounds and looks like. You can see it steaming, popping, and hissing. That is actually wet filament. This is not wet filament. This is a retraction issue. This is likely filament grinding. This is because they're not dealing with de-retraction properly. And if you do it properly, you won't have these problems. What is likely occurring here is they're doing this very small movement, they're retracting, they're de-retracting, and because they're likely de-retracting too fast, we've got some back pressure issues, and it takes a little bit for it to get going. The filament could also be getting work hardened, which is common in filament. If you move it in and out of the hot zone quite a few times, it will get harder and harder and harder to heat up and extrude. Now, eventually it does seem that their extruder motor is getting past it, but it is something to be aware of. In a print like this, look at your retraction and your de-retraction settings. Remember, you want to remove the filament very quickly, but you want to reinsert it back into the hot end 25 to 35 millimeters per second or less, especially if you have a Bowden tube. And don't forget, with PrintSlicer 2.5 Alpha 3, which we covered, we'll card to it, they've got this new system for dealing with the acceleration when you start and stop extrusion to deal with back pressure problems. It's like Pressure Advance, but honestly, way more better. So I highly recommend people take a look at that as well. It's not wet filament. The rest of this does not show it being wet filament. And again, it's like this milky white color, which is one of my least favorite colors of filament because it is effectively impossible to diagnose problems with unless they are absolutely egregious like this one is here. But we do see this often on our time-lapse printer because it takes so long, about 3.5 seconds, for the machine to move out of the way, take a photo, then come back. And because of that, we're actually going to be trying out the Beagle camera. It was sent over to us by the folks over at Minchin. I want to give them a shout out, thank for that. So this will be coming in a future video because our time-lapse setup could actually use a little bit of help. And I'm curious to see how this thing actually works. But yeah, retraction, de-retraction should be good to go. I have no idea why this happened. Left my print like always. First few layers seem fine, and then all my resin is gone. I printed a brick. Dude, oh man, that is a rough one. Corrupted file every single day of the week. It could be a bad screen and that the polarizer and LCD elements of the screen are not functioning properly, but if the first couple of layers went down fine to your expectation, it is likely just a corrupt file. But in a case like this, if that does happen, take your VAT off your printer, put a piece of paper over it, and run an LCD test. The printer will likely show you some form of image on the screen. The paper is just to protect your eyes. And if you don't see that, and what you actually see is just a big blank rectangle, you probably have a bad screen. If you do see what you're expecting, then you have a corrupt file. And I'm sorry, but it's an expensive lesson to learn. And unfortunately, at that layer height and with how deep vats are, you probably would not have noticed this until well after this person did. That's the problem with resin printing. The vats themselves are not clear and we can't see very easily into the vat. Now, I don't have a good solution for this, and I'm sure somebody could come up with it, but it would have to be basically crystal clear to be able to see the part as it comes out of the resin and then goes back in, so you could verify that it is actually printing what you expected and not actually making a very expensive, very interesting looking brick. I would clean it off, I would get it cured, and I would put it somewhere to remind myself that shit happens sometimes, and, well, it is what it is. Reslice the file, verify it with UV tools, which of course we have covered in a previous video. We'll card to it so you guys can take a look as well. And if all of that looks okay, well then, hey, you're good to go. And a big thanks goes out to Chris Catlett for sending this one over. Remember, guys, we do need your help finding those fails. Tag us on the social medias so we can find them. Next up, we got a fail from my buddy Paul over at Polymate 3D. They make amazing speaker kits that are so much fun to put together. Highly recommended. We'll card to the video where we talked all about those as well. And he has one of the most common failures that I see on the more affordable Ender clone 3D printers. Paul has a Generation 1 Voxelab Aquila, and the extruder has cracked. The actual idler wheel has broken off, and that is because the amount of spring pressure on those single-sided extruders is so damn high, it is unrealistically crazy. I do not understand why companies put such heavy springs. It is likely because it's the same springs they use on their bed and they don't want another SKU to have around in inventory, but it is absolutely frustrating because when you try to do things on a budget like Voxelab does and what quite a few other companies do, you end up with QC problems that are well-known issues in the industry. This is one of them. All metal extruder upgrade kits are absolutely as cheap as chips. You can get multiples for less than $10 on Amazon. In fact, I keep many in stock here. Not because we need them, but because we get phone calls from people that do. And for less than 10 bucks, it's cheap insurance for other people. We have a couple of Ender printers that do use the stock extruders still, but they're more for fun, not too much for the business. There's no easy way to fix this. If you did want to fix it, you could look at using like 3D glue or maybe even acetone to glue it back together. It is likely ABS. And we did interview Andrew from 3D Glue. We'll put that video down in the description for you guys as well if you want to take a look at it. But that's only going to get you so far. That might get you far enough to have the printer make its own replacement part. And as far as I'm concerned at that point, it did its job. I'd be remiss if I did not talk about my own failure. The 3D printing while driving video. Not only did we not wear lav microphones, I thought the mic from the Osmo Pockets that we used to film would be enough. No, it was pretty hard with the road noise. But two, chose quite literally the worst functional color to print those parts out of. Like the camera that I use for these videos absolutely hates neon colors. And I'm still a little salty about that because I am not going on another 5-hour drive just for a video. I'm sorry, I love you guys. But gas is expensive, and my car is 20 years old. Yeah, but I really did like that video. I'm just so frustrated with myself that I didn't make the call to use the blue whale gray that we had because I had thought that we're not going to get enough contrast out of blue whale gray when it's getting darker, even if we had supplementary lighting. Sometimes there's nothing you can do to change it, so you just have to send it. Last but not least, we got some F's in the chat from my buddy, Uncle Jessy. He has a bit of a resin disaster here. Thankfully, it happened on the floor. I don't honestly know why it happened on the floor, and I'm not here to ask those kinds of questions, but we've got resin all over the place. And I looked at it and said, was he shaking a bottle of resin and the cap flew off? I didn't actually know, so I did the next best thing, which is ask. He said he was lifting out the vat and it hit the build plate and it sloshed it. Yeah, I have seen this happen before, but never this bad. It's happened to me a couple of times. I've gotten a little bit of resin on the build plate. It'll drip onto the screen. You'll wipe it off with a paper towel and some alcohol, and then you cure the paper towel before you get rid of it because remember, resin is toxic. thought you were going to get away with a Print Fix Friday without one of those. What's wrong with you? This looks like his Saturn 2. Hopefully with the tape around the screen, nothing got under it. And the floor, being that awesome non-porous tile that he put down, should be pretty easy to clean as well. But to be safe about it, clean it up, move the printer out of the way, bring in a UV light source to cure any excess resin on the floor. And especially do that before any pets, children, anyone that might have their hands on the floor touch that area of the floor. You don't want them picking up resin on their skin because remember, resin is toxic. It's just easy. It's just a cleanup thing. It's a big oopsie. We've all made mistakes like this before. Pull off your build plate before you remove your vat, or just be a little bit more careful next time. You got this, buddy. I got faith in you. But it's nice that you do share these fails, everyone, because it helps remind those that are just starting out and struggling that even the experts, even the pros, still make mistakes. Mistakes are common. It happens to all of us. And that's just part of the deal. It's part of the learning process. And I hope that these videos help you guys out. We're actually coming up on 1 year of weekly Print Fix Friday videos, which is absolutely insane to me. And I am debating on continuing this series. So let me know if you guys want us to continue the series down in those comments below. But let me know what you thought of these fails. I'd love to know your opinions on it, especially the one with the odd extrusion issues. That one has so many potential little problems that I will be curious to find out exactly what the cause is. That's all I have for you all today. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one. Oh, fuck, shit. You screamed, "It's me," as you were slamming the door. Fuck. Holy shit. I'm still filming. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video, and a massive thank you goes out to all of our Patreon and YouTube channel member supporters. Remember, if you want to kick a couple of bucks into that creator fund and help make these videos possible, you can do so by clicking the links in that description or the join button right below this video. Right below me will be the entire Print Fix Friday series. Well, you can see fails and how to fix them. And right next to that will be my interview with Ken Johnson, the inventor of quite literally the second best-selling card game on the planet. Sold more copies than Monopoly. It's an amazing interview. I think you guys will enjoy it. I will see you all down in those comments and in the next one. Take care.